very privileged to have a very nice panel where we're going to discuss interesting subjects. But I would like to start by giving the word to Dr. Somanath from ISRO, the chairman of ISRO, who has received the 2024 Space Excellence Award yesterday, or that's earlier this week. And I think we're very privileged and honored to have Dr. Somanath making the keynote address. I hope you will have a very interesting session. Dr. Somanath.
So, dear colleagues and panelists, and also the colleagues from JAXA, the IAF Committee on Liaison of International Organizations and Developing Nations, Administrative Committee on Connecting Emerging Space Ecosystems, warm greetings from my side and also from India, ISRO. I think all of us know very well today, the panel also will resonate with this issue in the space domain. In the last decade or so, we have been discussing the space in different narratives. The beginning, it was more of technological progress, especially the early phases of space program, reaching to the space, putting objects in orbit, moving over to other planets. I think it has been a huge technological challenge for all nations to create infrastructure, knowledge, skill. And once that phase was over, especially with the dominance nations trying to establish their supremacy in the space ecosystem, who is the first, and all those early excitements are all over, where people were sitting back and looking at it, what for all of this we need to do. And of course, that has produced huge results. I think we need to understand the impact of those early efforts in space were really productive. We know today the growth of technology, the science, engineering, knowledge in the nations were primarily on account of those very vigorous activity that has been taking place in these nations in the early part of the space race. It really paved the way for the growth, not only in space, but in many other domains. And the secondary effects of that investment at that point in time was realized many years later, but not immediately. I think this was one of the issues that many of the policymakers, governments find it extremely difficult, even today, to understand the returns of investment on space. So this continued to remain a challenge for many of us, even today in nations where they are not gone into space. Questions are still asked why we should invest. Later, the whole space ecosystem evolved around another domain called the utilization of space for public good. I think the people came as a dominant entity, and all the space players like India, for example, when we started the space program, we were in 1960s. And of course, you should understand the country was not very rich at that point to invest even this much of money in space sector. And then our leaders had to make a narrative at that point, why we should work on space, build rockets and satellites and launch them. The narrative was very clear that it was for the people, and we need to serve the people. We need to look at how we can help them in their day-to-day life, in communication, in terms of healthcare, education, connectivity. I think all of this became the buzzwords, and then the delivery of those services were the primary motive of building the space system and not for anything else. The technology was not the primary issue, or dominance was not the topic. That was the narrative for politicians to understand, to allocate funds for us to do all of this. So that age was over. And then, if you really look at further, if you see, you will see the other domains growing in the domain of IT, electronics, communication infrastructure growing in a big manner. After the early accomplishments in space, today we can see space is only one subset of all of this. I think, today the communication infrastructure provided by space continue to be a support system. It's not the primary route of communication today. But we also know that the other capabilities like the Earth observation capability and the image processing ride over many of the other IT domains. You also know that today navigation systems like GPS and positioning services are secondary services running over other IT services and capabilities. So you are saying the whole of the space ecosystem got integrated into the technological growth in many other ways over the last many years. And then slowly now, people are asking this question once again, why space and why invest in space? How much money you should put in space, whether it is for a certain purpose or not for a purpose. Of course, New areas are emerging. I think the recent activities all around the globe, some other images are emerging, which is something which we don't have to discuss, but it is very important for us to understand. The space economy becomes an important topic for every nation to talk about space investments. When you talk about space economy, it means so many elements. It's just not the money that you invest in space technology development capabilities in every nation, but what is the return of investment that you are going to get over a period of time. All of us realize that the investments in space are very high, and the return of investment may not be there immediately, and it takes long gestation period. Risk element is also very high. So all this make people to worry about how to invest in space, and they look at very, very cautious approaches. So this is the current scenario, and many of them talk about global space economy, and there are a lot of studies and research done. I am not going into the numbers of the global space economy and how it's becoming justifiable, and each one have their own stories to tell, which definitely my panelists will definitely speak about all of them. Now let me speak about a little bit on Indian context. I think for us, we have been looking at the space economy in a big way, how it is going to fit into the national economy, how it's going to figure out, and what percentage of this is really going to contribute to the national economy. We have created a vision of 2047 in India. Possibly this could be same for other nations as well, where a Vikasit Bharat 2047 is a vision that we have created, where the growth in economy through various interventions, through policy and other becomes very important, and how we can grow from a certain stature of economic stature with respect to other nations to grow it, and how to sustain it over long periods of time. So this becomes an important area. And many elements have been identified under this, and we found that space is one of the important domain. The nation must continue to invest to create that capability for us to remain at the top of the economic activity. So it may find interesting for people who thought that investing in space was earlier questioned, not justified that easily. But today we realize that it has its own secondary effects and merits, possibly understood by political system, policy makers, and they see there is a possibility. Possibly in India, it happens on account of the success that we have done, made in some of those missions. Though our investment in space continues to remain very, very small compared to many other nations. Our annual investment in space from the government is hardly less than 1% of our gross domestic product. It is such a small investment. And there is an interest to grow it, and not just by the government alone, but also by the private entities. And this is something that we are looking at over a period of time. And for this, certain activities have been done by the government, possibly we will discuss a little in further, is to enable private ecosystem to come into space. And every nation has started in different models in space. One of them could be the National Space Agency was created, where the industry was not strong enough. I think the story of US is entirely different. It's not true for us, where there was no industry existing when our National Space Agency came in, and there was no one even capable of building anything. So everything was done by the agency, and then translated all that into industrial capability. Later today, industries are capable of building such systems, but this was not the case in the US, or in many other nations where there were industrial capability, especially in the domain of aeronautics and defense, which you could bank on to create the space capability. But this was not the case. So when we started working on this domain, we realized that now it is the time for industries to come up and have much higher levels of competence. So we created institutions like InSpace, which will help private companies to scale up their skill sets, give them authorization, and also created a new policy called National Space Policy 2023, where we delineated the responsibilities and roles of various entities in government. Also created a foreign direct investment policy where new investments can come into the country to create more vibrant space manufacturing and production ecosystem. This is very crucial. One of the lacking element is still the production and manufacturing capability, though it is very good in many other areas. But this initiative has shown great prospects. Today in India, we have 200 plus companies or startups working directly in space, which was only one company in 2014. Today we have 200 plus, and they are growing. And there is an aspiration from the current economy, which is valued at around $8.4 billion US dollars, which is hardly 2% of the global space economy, in India to grow to something like 10%, or even 8 to 10% of the global space economy. That share from India should be something we should aspire at least. So this is a goal. But this goal to come into reality, we see that there are a huge amount of work to be done, especially in the domain of private companies. So also to see that it's just not the private companies that we need to track timing, you know, okay. Not the private companies that need to come in, government also need to commit on certain investments. So I said that earlier that our GDP, compared to the GDP, it's only hardly 1% of investment in space. We are trying to invest more into space. For example, the recent announcements of building space station, continuing human spaceflight program, building new rockets, and have an aspiration to land on the moon and creating all those programs are indicators of those intent of the government. Unless there is a governmental funding in space, the corresponding funding from private will not come. This is something that we have understood in terms of the economy. It's just not possible to be driven just by private alone, but you need an equal partnership. And if you look at globally, not India alone, we will also see similar pictures in other nations. Even in US, you see similar programs on nature, though the models could be different than India in terms of the private partnership. In fact, the decision they are taken to bring in commercial companies to work in space and become successful is one classic example on the change revision, which they started at least 10+ years back, and it has really produced excellent results. It's also true in case of Europe. If you look at it, the thrust on companies to take up higher levels of responsibility to do it. The successful launch of the Ariane 6 is an example of such a move from Ariane 5 to Ariane 6. And it's happening in other domains as well, satellite building and new technologies, communication, and commercial operations. Of course, there are still complexities in that area. In Europe, I am still having that view on it. If you look at the Middle East side also, there is a great aspiration for many of the nations to invest in space sector. We are seeing growing aspiration for countries to come, just not technology, but also to create cooperative mode of working, creating launcher capabilities, satellite building, infrastructure building, manufacturing ecosystems, services. I think all of this area people are investing, many of them are investing. And emerging space nations in the Latin America, Africa, there is a huge amount of interest, but here again, the same questions are being asked in the domain of economy. They are asking why we should invest, and where are the right path to invest, how much of the government should invest, how much private companies to invest. And I am sure these confusions will continue in the early part of the space program, but it's very important to create an appropriate narrative for each of the nations to make their governments to understand and make them invest in it. So first of all, let us say that our topic contains many elements. That's why it's a little complex. It's just not the economy of space. We are also looking at organizations and other participants in this program. This as the theme of this. The international organizations play a very, very important role in this movement. I must tell you that India have been a partner in many of the international organizations, especially those who were created early part of the journey, the UN COPUS, the IAF. We were founding partners, members in this program, and it helps us in many ways. And not only just in terms of understanding the global ecosystem, but also to create partnership, working together in technologies and joint missions. I think this has been a journey. Today we have created a very high level of cooperative work with many, many nations and agencies. And thank you for that support that you are giving even in IAF and also from UN COPUS, where we are active partners. Second aspect is about awareness creation for any nation to work in space, new nations to work in space. And we want more people to come into space. It's very important, just not that it should not be a dominant nations that only a few of them are working. No, it's not the case. We want more people to come into space and work in different domains based on the skills and capability available in the nation. We should, and also the need that is there, it should happen. But this will happen only provided we work on creating the appropriate awareness and the narrative suitable for the nation. For example, a nation which is rich in its biodiversity, natural resources, you should be able to show to the decision makers how space can become useful for the nation. How the disaster management activities in the nation can really be benefited by the investment in space. how the literature, learning, education, infrastructure in the country can really be transformed by the interventions in space. I think these are all important for small nations where they want to create capability. Huh? Close? Yeah, I'm just closing. So, it's very important that for us to continue this discussion on space economy. I believe that the growth is imminent. It's very, very clear. The scale of the space operations are growing fast, but not by the scale that Elon Musk is putting in front of us in terms of number of satellites and launches that he is mesmerizing all of us with new capability that is developing every day, but also by many other nations in terms of the scale of work that they are increasing. But we see that there is a huge interest in many new nations emerging, and we see the discussion on dialogue on economy becomes very prominent. It's just not technology alone, because technology is now more accessible to large segment of the society. So no longer technology becomes an inhibition or preventing somebody to do something. That's not the issue today. The issue today still is the economic activity, scale of work, and how the investment is going to bring in benefit and returns to each one of us. So thank you so much for this opportunity given to me to provide some initial thoughts to initiate this discussion. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Somanath, for this very interesting. Does it work? Yeah, for this very interesting keynote introduction that, let's say, we listened quite attentively. But this brings us now to the panel discussion, and let me first then have the panel, the people presented. So we have on my right side Junichi Sakai, who is the ISS program manager located in JAXA. Sharif Setki, the CEO of the Egyptian Space Agency. Arti Holamani, of course, let's say the director of UNOOSA. Rodrigo da Costa, the director of USPA. And then Hazuki Mori, the lead in space technology from the World Economic Forum. So this brings me to the first question, and we start from left to right, Junichi. How should developing nations and emerging communities embark with their space ambitions?
Okay. Hi, I'm Sakai Junichi. I'm ISS program manager of JAXA, and so I just answered those questions. And in 2015, JAXA, in collaboration with the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNOOSA, launched a Kibo CUBE program, a cooperation to provide the opportunities to release nanosatellite from the International Space Station Kibo with the aim of contributing to improving the space-related technologies in developing countries. This has been done by using the unique capability of Kibo modules to release nanosatellites into space using a robotic arm. By maximizing the strengths of this Kibo and utilizing the network and know-how of the UNOOSA with its members countries to provide the opportunities to use nanosatellites to developing countries and to contribute to the improvement of space-related technologies in those countries. This program is the first capacity building initiative to reach space of the UNOOSA and has advanced 8 selections to date, delivering satellites from Kenya, Guatemala, Mauritius, Indonesia, and Moldova to space. In addition to the Kibo CUBE program, JAXA also has a strategic partnership with several Japanese universities in Japan. By combining the human resource development capabilities, nanosatellite development capabilities, and experience of Japanese universities with JAXA's unique nanosatellites release capabilities and periodical release opportunities, JAXA has promoted the international cooperation in the form of human resources development and satellite research, which is desired by many emerging countries. We believe that we can provide opportunities for countries that do not have the capability to launch satellites to use and demonstrate their capability in space. JAXA also believes that space activities can be initiated in those countries through the international cooperations based on comprehensive capabilities like human resource development, satellite development, and its release. I'm pleased that Japan can contribute to these opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yanuchi. Then we turn to Africa. Sherif, let's say you are building a sustainable space ecosystem in the Egyptian Space Agency. But what are the opportunities and the challenges you can explain to us?
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon. So if we talk about the ecosystem and what are the challenges that we are facing, then we just need to see what are the different components of such an ecosystem and how can we tackle all those challenges and see how can we establish the proper ecosystem that help emerging space nations to have their own share from space. So if we look at the different components, it starts with the political will, then this is followed with the proper infrastructure, then the talent, then the having the proper environment for nurturing such talent and having the enabling technology. And then this should be associated with the proper collaboration regionally and internationally. And finally, there should be the proper policies that govern the whole system to ensure the safe usage of outer space and the responsible usage of outer space. So if we see our experience at the Egyptian Space Agency and in Egypt and look at the various components for such ecosystem, can we switch to the next slide?
We've got a clicker here.
We see that Egypt established a space city that extends over 123 acres, as you see it here in this image. We are the host country for the African Space Agency. You see it at the top right corner of the image here. And it have decent facilities that enable realizing the sustainable goals of the country and of the African continent and the Middle East as we speak. So this, can we switch to the next slide, please? So we have the state-of-the-art assembly integration facility. Next, please. That have all the different components and the different testing facilities that enable the proper testing prior to launching the satellite. Next one, please. Together with the different state-of-the-art equipments required for testing. So this means that we have the proper infrastructure, we have the proper connections, and actually here you look at the second phase of the space city. What you see in front of you here is the full layout of the space city as it stands today. And you see at the back side, this area is now dedicated to be a technology park, which means that we are attracting industries here to start to establish the infrastructure for the space industry in Egypt. So this will be the incubation for this process in Egypt. So that's how we see the building the different components of the ecosystem and how can we move forward with that in Egypt and to serve the whole region, the full African continent and the region. And this also requires lots of international collaboration, which we are working on today. So that's in a nutshell how we look for an proper ecosystem in Egypt. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sherif. It is a very, very impressive It is indeed a very impressive site. I can confirm this. Artie, let's say for the UNOOSA, the signature of the Pact for the Future had a big impact, and the member states have agreed to improve the global governance for space and considered holding a fourth United Nations conference. What does this mean for UNOOSA in?
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, the Pact for the Future was the result of the Summit of the Future, an initiative of the United Nations Secretary General to really underscore the importance of the multilateral process. And in Action 56 of the Pact for the Future, there is a real call to action on COPUOS, the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Member States, to take action on space traffic, space debris, and space resources. This means a lot of work for UNOOSA. Even though the call to action is on the committee, I realize, in having come to UNOOSA just 1 year ago, that we have a really diverse level of knowledge within the committee. Sometimes we have experts, like our colleagues from ISRO, who are also very active in the long-term sustainability working group and so on. But we also have delegates in COPUOS who are from the permanent missions in Vienna and who are dealing with nuclear on the one hand, drugs and crime, but also space as just one of the many portfolios. So we see an urgent need to level the playing field in terms of knowledge and understanding around issues which are necessarily complex and also technical. Not everybody understands what is ephemeris data, what is space traffic management, what is a conjunction assessment. And when it comes to space debris, that's even more complex. So there's a lot of work for us to do. We hope that, excuse me, we hope that by doing a lot of capacity building and supporting the member states in the coming years, we will be able to arrive at a Unispace 4 space summit, which is really high level, in 2027, with the results and the fruits of all of this work that we intend to do with the committee. 2027 would be a pivotal year for the committee. It would mark the 70th session of COPUOS. Can you believe it's been going on for so long? But it was also be the 60th anniversary of the Outer Space Treaty, which is still the cornerstone of the entire space economy as we know it today. Many people look at the United Nations and look at the space treaties and they say, oh, this is old, this is out of date. Yes, it's old. It's most certainly not out of date. We have a line of 60 member states who are waiting for us to do capacity building with them and technical advisory missions to help them draft their space law. And those space laws are first and foremost built on the implementation of the Outer Space Treaty. So it's as relevant today as it was back then. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Artie. Then we go to the applications, Rodrigo. USPA contributes to the expanding the utilization of space technologies and applications for the socio-economic benefits for developing nations. How do you do this?
Thank you very much. First, thank you for the invitation to be at this GNF. Thank you to JAXA for the organization. It's brilliant. The topic is really good. Maybe before mentioning what are the applications that we are building, let me just mention briefly what is the basis on which we are building those applications. That's the EU Space Program. So basically, here we are working on three main pillars or three key areas of activities. Satellite navigation with Galileo, our global navigation satellite system, and EGNOS, the one of regional coverage in Europe. We are working as well on building applications on Copernicus, Earth observation, very comprehensive Earth observation program, taking several types of data and measurements from the Earth. And last but not least, also the element of satellite communications. In the European Union, this is a new element, is something that we are building up, starting right now first with GovSatcom to provide EU government with secure satellite communication capability, and as well building up the IRIS2 secure connection connectivity constellation. So this is the basis. These are the basic infrastructure on which the applications that you mentioned can be built. And let me say there is plenty of work to be done there. I mean, we have been looking at the market, at the potential that there is. There are applications in many, many different domains. We are looking at a total of 15 domains. They are quite varied. They go from the classical transport utilization, so space for road, for rail, for aviation, for maritime, for drones as well, of course, a market that is now growing. We are looking for space for agriculture, for fisheries, urban planning, energy, banking and finance, etc., etc. So as you can see, already today, space is quite present in our daily life, and the trend is for it to increase. When we look at the market, and by the way, I would recommend you to have a look at our market reports. You will see there what is going on already today and what is our forecast for the future. The number of applications is growing, which means also the business opportunities are growing. We are looking at markets that in the next decade will basically duplicate. And it is not every market that will duplicate, but we believe that when it comes to space applications, that will be the case. From a total value of the world market of around 260 billion euro right now, we are expecting something closer to 600 billion by 2033. So there are plenty of opportunities and there are plenty of applications in this domain. The demand is growing. Certainly some of the sectors and some of the areas will continue being important. There are others that are as well on a very fast expansion. For example, we believe that insurance and finance can become the largest user of Earth observation data by 2033. Today, the use is quite limited, but there is quite a lot of potential to grow. Now, all this data can be used actually everywhere, and this is the positive element, because it's not only about using this data in Europe, using this data around the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Rodrigo. I must admit, I've read the market report 2024. It's more than 220 pages, I believe, but it's extremely interesting to see the economic potential for combined use of GNSS and Earth observation. Thank you very much. We go in an accelerated mode now because we're running a bit short of time, so that's why we ask 2 questions to Hazuki at the same time. So, Hazuki, the World Economic Forum. What are they doing to support developing nations and emerging countries in their space activities?
Thank you for the question. And of course, thank you so much for the invitation to this panel. I'm it's an honor to be here with my former bosses from JAXA and from UNOOSA. But today I'm representing the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is an international organization for public-private cooperation. We have been doing space activities for the last, I would say, 5 years. But this year we have expanded our team. It was only Geneva, but now we have colleagues like myself in Tokyo. We have colleagues in India as well. And basically, at the forum, we're doing different space initiatives. We have 4 main pillars. One is the future of space economy, where we're talking about the space economy in 2030, 2040. Of course, we do sustainability activities. Another one is a National Space Program Toolkit activity that I'll talk about in the next slide. And we also do focus on Earth observation. And as I said earlier, we have regional activities, and we have a big focus this year on India, Japan, and Saudi Arabia. And just to really emphasize one of these programs, it's the National Space Program Toolkit Initiative. This is in collaboration with our colleagues from PwC. And nowadays, the barrier has lowered for more countries to join in. Space awareness has been raising. There's so many more countries that want to join the game. And we can see this trend from the membership of COPUS. So basically at the forum, we want to support all of these countries. And they have many questions. This is also coming from my experience at the UN. They don't know who to work with. They don't know where to procure the services from. They don't know basically where to start, right? What kind of, how much it would cost, the infrastructure, the capacity, and really which part of the technology stack to really invest in to get the maximum outcome and really make sure that it engages in their national activities. So basically our toolkit, we're focusing to basically build the step-by-step building guide, talking about the core building blocks that these countries need to take in mind, and of course, customizable recommendations. Really focusing on the success stories, the lessons learned from the different countries that have gone through this process. And I really look forward to engaging all of the people in this room, actually. I think that's why you're here in this room, that you're interested in supporting emerging space nations, but maybe you're one of them and you want to really get in the game. So yeah, I'm really excited to go on with this initiative.
Okay, thank you, Azuki. But they're also here in this room to find out how the World Economic Forum helps to find innovative solutions and continue that combines science and technology with economic incentives.
Thank you. So the World Economic Forum space is just one of the things that we do. We cover everything from climate change to health, financial and monetary systems, energy, cybersecurity, you name it. But especially at the forum, we really focus on technology convergence. We really think that we just can't talk about space just within the space sector. We really need cross-sectoral and international collaboration, and this is something we're focusing on. Some examples I can give of the forum that we've done in the past, I would say 2 years. We collaborated with MIT Media Lab. We issued a report, I believe it was like 1 month ago, focusing on 10 emerging technologies used in conjunction with satellite data, which is really helping climate insights, which is providing insights and helping address climate change. And the 10 technology trends that we raised, of course, there's AI, machine learning, deep learning, edge computing, AR, VR. So these are technologies that we really need to combine more with satellite data. Another report we did with Deloitte was focusing on Earth observation and the value of it, combining that with terrestrial industry applications. And when we really do that successfully, we can generate $700 billion worth of economic opportunity. It's really, the opportunity is there. And the global greenhouse gas emissions, we can reduce it to 3.6%, 2 gigatons annually, actually. So we've really brought out the numbers for that. And last but not least, I've heard and I've seen many people reference it during this conference, but we did a report with McKinsey talking about the space economy in 2035. So Rodrigo said maybe 2 times, but I think for us, we have a pretty ambitious number of saying it's going to grow to 1.8 trillion $. And it's not just the core space capabilities. We're really talking about the space-enabled services, combining the current space technology and applications with the terrestrial industry applications here. So basically, we are really trying to showcase the collaboration of space technology and terrestrial industry applications to make sure that there's convergence, and by really promoting space as an economy that's worth investing in and collaborating with, I think that's where we're trying to put a lot of focus on.
Thank you, Hazuki. You talk about the collaborations. Rodrigo talks about specific partnerships. Perhaps you can say a few words about the partnerships which are there to uptake the space technology in applications.
Thank you very much. So the first thing is, of course, we take benefit from the fact that the European Union is doing partnerships all around the world, and we bring the space angle into those partnerships. So we do have, there are a number of initiatives, dialogues, structured dialogues with nations that the Union is doing, and we take benefit of that, and we bring space applications, we bring space activities. I'll not have time to mention them all. Let me mention one, which I find particularly relevant, which is the work we have been doing with UNOOSA, with Arti and the team, based on, or starting from an agreement that we have started back in 2022. And we have been looking, and we have been joining efforts on a number of activities, promoting space technology, helping to build capacity, having some joint studies, some joint assessments. By the way, there are also a number of interesting reports that you will find on our web pages that we have issued in this sense. And of course, with a particular focus on the implementation of the SDGs and on societal challenges. And I think all these demonstrates in these different areas where space can have an added value.
Okay. Very good. Then we go to UNOOSA. Arti, what does UNOOSA do to ensure that developing countries can benefit from the global space economy?
I want to build on the point that Hazuki mentioned, which is that so many countries who can benefit, who need space technology and solutions, actually have no clue how to access them, how to use them, where to find them. And that goes to the capacity building role that the office has. We do so many events like the UN IAF workshop, which happened, we came here last Thursday already. We were working through the weekend with many delegates from developing countries. We also have the World Space Forum and the UN Austria Symposium, which is focused on climate applications. And these events are designed to really help member states learn from best practices that are being implemented elsewhere, but also provide a platform for them to have collaboration. But if we go to the more specific, I come from the satellite operator community, and in my previous life, there were so many academics and partners who wanted to work with us and who asked me, can you help us convince satellite operators to carry hosted payloads? Of course, the satellite operators all said no, because every extra gram that needs to fly into space is very expensive. I come to UNOOSA and I realize that we have partnerships with JAXA, with for Kibo CUBE, with the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in the Middle East, and also now with ExoLaunch in Germany. We have organizations who actually offer access to space for free. And so that is perhaps one of the most significant contributions that we are making. We have enabled the first satellites to be launched for Kenya, Mauritius, Guatemala, Moldova, Indonesia, Nepal, Bahrain. Well, no, Bahrain is not the first one, but you know, so many countries who were not spacefaring, and thanks to the partnership with us, they were able to learn about space technology, develop their first satellite in partnership with these organizations, and actually launch them into space. And that is the triggering of the space economy for them. It supports not only the space economy per se, but also STEM education, and is a real motivator and a lifter of their economies.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Let's a question to the technical team. The clock has stopped at a certain point in the time. Does this give us more time, or does it was it a little accident? It's because it stayed still for about 10 minutes out. So, okay, if there's so then we happily continue, which is good. Yeah. So we can take it easy now, which is excellent. Sherif, what should be done to promote the use of space-based Earth observation data to further understand our planet?
Yes, the Earth observation data is getting very, very important, specifically in the developing of the economics of the countries and in the decision-making process. So let me share with you our experience in Egypt, where now the usage of the Earth observation data is institutional. And at the government level, most of the strategic decisions are taken based on the Earth observation data. This is an integral part of all the decisions that are taken, and it helps us actually to efficiently utilize all our resources. So to understand the climate changes, to understand the appropriate distribution for crops, and to ensure that it's properly distributed. So that's the coordination between the Egyptian Space Agency and the government to support them and to provide them with the proper Earth observation data that will help in understanding all the different types of natural resources, the water resources, all what's happening on the ground to maximize the benefit. And actually, when we look at the economics of the country, it have been significantly affected and improved when we start to integrate the Earth observation data into the decision-making process. So, and I think we are working also now to promote this to the whole African continent.
Mm-hmm. Good. Then we've got the last panel question for Yunuchi. How can international organizations work together with space agencies and industry to create successful space ecosystems?
Yeah.
Could we go back again? Let's can we have the clicker, please? Because it has been given out to us. Yep.
As I mentioned before, the Kibo CUBE program has provided the opportunity to use nanosatellite to the developing country by utilizing the network and the know-how of the UNOOSA with its member countries. The countries that have used the Kibo have established space agencies and space government agencies. New private companies have participated in that project, and the next generation of engineers have been born. That shows the secondary expansion of the secondary expansion of the project. The collaboration of international organizations and the space agencies with unique facility and technologies will open the door to space utilization to many emerging countries. The Kibo CUBE program is one of the such initiatives, example of that initiatives. In addition to the Kibo CUBE program, JAXA also provides opportunities for experiment using Kibo's exposed facility and satellite released by private operators as paid program. JAXA provides IBA resupplyable small exposed experiment platform we call ICEP, which provides a stable power, communication, and heat exhaust interface and enable more complicated function demonstrations. And small payload support equipment we call SPICE, which provides only simple USB communication and heat exhaust services, but can incorporate CubeSat-size experimental devices. So JAXA and Japanese experiment module Kibo can provide a way to connect the seeds of space development to space utilizations, which is opened by Kibo CUBE program, then conducted by the Kibo utilization platform. This will lower the hurdles to space development, support the technological development of each country, and lead to the establishment of the coming LEO economy. We believe that the expansion of economic zone and LEO industry will lead to the creation of more efficient means of transportation and use, and will lead to a world that everyone can use. The transformation from a world where a limited number of the countries can access to LEO to a world where any country can participate and use LEO will lead to the investment of more capital and the establishment of a larger economic zone. So that.
Okay, thank you, Yanucci. Let's say then we have got perhaps, let's say, 1 minute, 2 minutes for the last key takeaways. Azuki, can we get your short takeaway? Because I guess, let's say that the other group is waiting already, the other GNF.
Yes, I would really like to add to Artie's point. By supporting emerging nations, it's really sparking the economy there. We're building an ecosystem. We're building a really sustainable spark in their business and their economy. So I think doing that together collectively through the efforts of the African Space Agency, USPA, with all the different agencies, I think that's a very crucial point that we all need to work on together. Another point is really for these emerging countries to use the existing platforms and services that are out there. As already explained, UNOOSA does a lot. There's many other organizations that provide free services, free educational capacity building activities, and I think it's really worth for these countries to really explore that. And last but not least, I really want to emphasize the part of technology convergence. So space, we need to combine it more with other technologies, with other industrial applications. There's AI, there's many things going on, and I think we really need to make sure that we're in the game as well, or we're gonna be, late and we're gonna be left behind. So I think as a collective effort, we really have to come together and really focus on advancing and pushing the envelope.
Okay. Rodrigo, may I ask you for a shorter takeaway?
Yes, very short from my side. To say that, I mean, space technology, space data, space services, they boost our economy, they bring real value to our economy. They also help us to manage many of our societal issues, challenges, for example, in the area of disaster management, just to cite one of them. And certainly, despite what may be regional specificities, many of those challenges are common and are worldwide. So certainly, by further fostering the use of space data and space services, we will continue advancing.
Thank you. Arti?
Sure. I think it's very easy to assume that the only way to engage in the space economy is through the upstream market, having a satellite, and obviously that does a lot for you. It stimulates STEM as well, but we should remember that we are moving to a world where we see an increasing amount of satellite as a service, even launch as a service, because the downstream market, the value of applications and services is really where the mass market potential is. And I think we should remember that you don't need to have a satellite in order to participate in the space economy. There's other ways of doing that. And we are living in a data-driven economy. So Sherif's point about Earth observation data, coupled with high-power computing, AI, and all of this, all of these are ways of participating in the space economy, and there are brilliant minds across the world, especially in developing member states in academia, which we should tap to help us advance on the application and services side. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherif?
So international collaboration and sharing knowledge, it's one of the main pillars to enhance the economic development of space. That's my key.
Okay, that's very short. That's very precise. Thank you. UNOOSA, you've got the last word.
Okay. Just about for grant. Just believe that countries that have experienced space development can gain perspective from space and foster the soil for cooperation on regional issues through cross-national collaboration with similar countries. In recent years, natural disasters have reached a level that is difficult for a single country to cope with. We just believe that this will provide an opportunity to work on solving global issues through the space, such as region-wide efforts for disaster prevention and cooperation in preventing and responding to disaster. That is one issue.
Okay, very good. Now, this concludes our GNF panel. Once again, a very special thanks to Dr. Somenat for his keynote address. A very big thanks to the five panelists for their insightful presentations and discussions. Let's say much appreciated. Special word of thanks to JAXA for having made this GNF possible. And of course, last but not least, thank you very much for your attention to have participated to this GNF. Thank you and a very good afternoon.